All right, we get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for participating in the 2023 refresher training for Western New York Prism's Tonawanda Rails to Trails survey program. I'm Rachel Taylor, Western New York Prism's Community Science and Engagement Program Manager. We also have here Andrea Locke, who is Western New York Prism's coordinator. So today's training, I'm going to start by providing just a little bit background information on Western New York Prism and the Rails to Trails survey program. I'll then go into this year's protocol and provide information on getting started with iMapInvasives. I'll review the focal and bonus species for this year, and then just going through some of the key identification features for them. And then at the end, if you haven't already signed up for a segment survey, you'll have an opportunity at that point as well. Since we're recording the webinar, I'm going to ask that everyone, if you have questions that come up during the webinar, if you could you can enter them into the chat, and then we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, we can always unmute and go through questions if people have any. So but just at least for the recording, we'll just hold off to the end. Okay, so we're going to start with just a little bit of background information. I think a lot of you are already familiar with this, but I'll just go through just some of the basics. So Western New York Prism, it covers 8 counties in the Western New York region. We're one of 8 prisms across New York State. And our mission is to proactively identify, evaluate, and address invasive species priorities in Western New York using a coordinated partnership of local professionals, organizations, and community members to improve, restore, and protect local aquatic and terrestrial resources. We have a number of core functions that guide our work. We develop partnerships throughout the region. We provide accurate and up-to-date information about invasive species. And along with that, we educate people and get them engaged with invasive species management, like exactly what we're doing here today with the Trail Survey program. We also focus on prevention to keep invasive species from spreading throughout the Western New York Prism region, and early detection to try and eradicate species that are new to the area. We also do management and restoration, and that's when we're out there treating invasive species and providing information like best management practices to folks. So I think all of you are probably familiar with what an invasive species is, but since it's a refresher, an invasive species has a couple of key features. First of all, it's non-native to the ecosystem under consideration. And second, its introduction causes harm to the economy, environment, and/or human health. Some examples of economic harm could include impacting agriculture or forest products. Recreation and tourism could also be impacted. Environmental harm could include impacts to biodiversity, different natural processes, and ecosystem functioning. And human health harm could include impacts to soil, water, air quality, or causing direct injury, disease, or illness. Often you'll find that an invasive species causes multiple, if not all, of these types of harm. So with that, starting to give you an overview of the Tonawanda Rails to Trails survey program. If you're new to the program, a couple of you are, and then it'll be a refresher for others. So it's one of Western New York Prism's community science programs, and it aims to address invasive species issues along the Town of Tonawanda portion of the Rails to Trails pathway. So we do this by engaging the public to identify, map, and manage invasive species along the trail. The program was initiated in 2020, but then the COVID pandemic happened, and Western New York Prism started the program back up in 2022. And many of you were involved with surveying and mapping last year, so we thank you again for all of your help with this. And here are the maps that we made using last year's survey results. We had 2 maps because there were so many points in each region, we had to divide them up. So, excuse me. So most of these segments along the trail were surveyed at least one time last year. Looking at these maps, oh, here's my pointer. You know, it seems that a lot of the points are kind of clustered in certain areas, but that is not because the invasive species are only in those areas. It may just mean that some of these segments haven't been surveyed yet. So that's definitely a priority for us this year, is to have the segments that didn't get surveyed last year to get surveyed this year. So for this year's program, we are kicking off this year's surveys with a two-part refresher training, as you all know, and that includes today's webinar, and then it will be followed by our field refresher next Tuesday, June 20th at 6:30 p.m. And we will be meeting at the Tonawanda Rails to Trails, and we'll be going over practicing plant identification there, and then also practicing using the iMapInvasives app. If that's new to you, that'll be a great opportunity to practice doing that while we're there as well. Afterwards, volunteers will have the opportunity to survey the segment that they've signed up for at least one time between June 21st and August 16th. That's in 8 weeks total that you'll have to complete your survey. So here is a map of the survey segments here, and then I have the spreadsheet with the different segments of the trail. So the Town of Tonawanda portion of the Rails to Trails goes from Kenmore Avenue up to State Street. And we've divided the trail up into 10 different segments. And all of these segments are less than a half mile. These are the same segments that were used last year. The segments with an asterisk next to them here, 3, 4, 5, and 9 are the ones that are a priority for us to get done this year. Of course, it would be great to get them all done, but these are definitely the ones that we really want to have surveyed because they didn't get surveyed last year. Volunteers will select whichever segment they'd like to survey, and I will be showing the slide at the end of the presentation as well, so you can get a closer look and decide what you want to sign up for if you haven't already. Also, I just wanted to mention it's totally fine if multiple people sign up for the same segment to survey. And if you want to survey more than one segment, that is also welcome. So moving into the survey protocol, this is much simpler than it was last year. So when you go out to survey your segment, you're going to start at one end of the trail segment, walk down one side of the trail while searching for the focal species. And then when you see a focal species, stop, report your observation using the iMapInvasives app, which we'll go into a moment. And then continue doing this until you reach the end of your trail segment. Once you get to the end, you'll basically repeat the same procedure, but on the opposite side of the trail. So basically, what we want you to be including in your survey is just anything that you can see from the trail. You don't need to go walking off the trail to try to locate different things. Another thing I wanted to mention is regarding reporting observations. So you don't need to report every single individual plant of the same species if it's in the same general area. So for example, you might come across an area where there's scattered plants of common buckthorn, and making one report is usually going to be sufficient in that case. What we do is if plants are within about 40 feet of each other, that's about half of a tennis court or a full-size school bus, we make one report. Now, if you make more than one report, that's totally fine, but we just want you to know that you don't need to make a report for every single individual plant of the same species. Also, if you come across a large continuous infestation of the same species, you can always make note of that in your observation report. And you could take a point at the beginning of it, and then you could take another one kind of either in the middle or kind of like a break, like a natural break in where the infestation is going to. But there'll be a place where you can make note of that as well in your survey report. Okay, so iMapInvasives, I think for almost all of you, I already know that you've signed up for this and used this. But I'm just going to go through it briefly in terms of making your account and getting set up to complete the surveys, and then how to make the survey reports. So getting started, this is just a summary of what to do to sign up for iMapInvasives. You'll create an account on the iMapInvasives, oh my gosh, I can say it, iMapInvasives website. Provide your person number to me so I can add you to the Town of Tonawanda Rails to Trails program project. Download the app to your phone or tablet, log into it with your account details, set your preferences, and then you'll be ready to survey. So just to kind of go through this step by step, here you'll go to the iMapInvasives website and log in. Here, enter all of your information into the sign up sheet here. And then once you get all logged in, you can go to the top left corner, and there's like a three gray line thing here up at the top. You click on that, and that's going to open up a drop down menu. Click on your account, and then you'll be able to see your person number here. And that's what you'll want to provide to me so that I can add you to the project. Once you have that all set up, you can download the app to your phone. You just search for in the App Store, iMapInvasives mobile, and it will come up here. It's a little leaf, a green leaf with a little black bug next to it. And you download the app, and then you can open it. Once you open it, this is basically what the screen looks like. It's like a little navigation screen, so it shows you where everything is. You can click up here at the three white lines. That's another drop-down menu, and you can go into preferences here. And then here you can set your preferences. You can add your information here, your username and password, your jurisdiction species list. This is important. You want to put New York here. And then you can select whether you like to see the species names as scientific names or as common names. I think a lot of us probably just use common names, but you're welcome to choose. And then you can determine your picture quality here, and then decide whether you want to save the photos that you take in the app on your phone. So if you click this here, then whatever photos you take while you're doing the survey, that will also be saved to your phone. But you're not required to do that. Just having it submitted with your report is sufficient for us. And that's basically all that you have to set up for your preferences here. You can save it after that. When I go into the project, you do have the option, if you're going out and completing a survey and you want to just set your default project to the Town of Tonawanda Rails to Trails program, you can do that for while you're doing your survey. It will save you like one step when you're doing your reports, but it's not required to be the default project. And then when you're done doing your survey, you'd want to make sure that you removed it so that not all of your observations went to that project. But we'll go into that a little more detail. So once you have the program all set up in your phone, you'll be ready to go out and report your survey observations. So this is just a summary of all of the steps that you'll take for reporting the survey observations. And, like I did before, I'm just going to go through one by one and just show the different steps for this. A lot of this you're probably already going to be familiar with, just minus the project drop-down menu. That may be something new. So when you open up the app on your phone, you're out there, you're doing your survey, you identify a tree of heaven on your segment, your trail segment. So you click add observation, and then this screen will open up. You can take a photo, take a good clear photo of the plant that helps to identify it. So however you're identifying the plant, try to kind of focus it on those features. So here I saw a tree of heaven, so I took a picture of it, and you click on this drop-down menu here to select the species. And this is, you have to scroll through the species in order to get wherever what you're trying to find. Once you get that, I selected tree of heaven here. You want to select species detected. So the date and GPS location is going to be automatically set up in there already, so you don't need to edit any of this information. This here is where, I do want to make sure that you do select this. So you want to select the iMap3 project. You'll do this drop-down menu and select Town of Tonawanda Rails to Trails program. So that will show up once you provide your person number to me. Then I'm going to add you to the program, and then that will show up for you. And you'll be able to select that when you make a report. If you want to add any observation comments, you can as well. So like if like I mentioned before, if you see a large continuous infestation, you want to make note of it, you can add that in here, and then you'll just click save. And then once you return home after completing your survey, you can upload your observations to iMapInvasives. If you have unlimited data on your phone, you can technically do this anytime, but we typically recommend people to do it when they get home so they can be connected to Wi-Fi and they're not using their data up. So once you connect to Wi-Fi at your house, then you open up the app and you're going to see, so here I have one observation, one record to upload, but you'll probably have a whole bunch of them here listed. And you'll want to select all the different observations that you're going to be uploading. So here you can see I check marked it here, and that's going to get uploaded. Go to the top left corner of your app here, your app window. And again, the 3 white lines, click on that, opens up a drop-down menu, click on upload selected, and then it's going to kind of walk you through a couple of are you sure questions and things, and then just continue moving forward with that and upload all of your observations. Okay, so that was basically the survey protocol and how to record the species that you are seeing when you're out doing your surveys. Now we're going to move into the focal plant species for this year. So these focal plant species, these were all species that were actually seen during, well, almost all of them were seen during the surveys last year. So I don't think any of these are really going to be new for anybody that helped with surveys last year. A lot of them are very common species and relatively easy to identify. So we have 5 tree and shrub species: common buckthorn, glossy buckthorn, bush honeysuckle, multiflora rose, tree of heaven. For herbaceous species, we have knotweed, mugwort, teasel, Candida thistle, and bull thistle. And then we have 1 grass species, Phragmites, also known as common reed. So common buckthorn is a shrub or a small tree. It's up to 25 feet tall. And this was identified during the surveys last year. The bark is dark gray with an orange inner bark. and young branches may have sharp spines. I think like one of the key features that you're probably going to notice when you're out there is going to be the leaves, which are smooth and finely toothed. So like along the edges of the leaves, it's finely toothed here. And then the veins on the leaves are uneven, and they extend towards the tip of the leaf. The flowers are yellow-green and 4-petaled and in clusters of 2 to 6. And then the berries, which I'm not sure you'll see the berries during your surveys this year, but those are dark purple to black. And then glossy buckthorn is also a shrub or small tree up to 30 feet tall. You can see here the bark is dark gray with these white lenticels on them, these little white dots on them, which is a good feature to look for. The leaves have prominent even venations. So here you can see, unlike the glossy buckthorn, which kind of went towards the edge of the tip, these are going towards the edge of the leaves here, and they're equal with each other. The leaves are also more shiny. The flowers are pale yellow and the berries are reddish earlier in the season and turning dark purple later. And then here we just have the comparison between the two species, just so that you can tell between the two. I think the main thing that you'll see during the surveys to tell the difference is going to be the leaves. So again, the common buckthorn, the venation is going towards the tip of the leaf, and then the glossy buckthorn is more even and going towards the edges of the leaf. And then the other key feature that I think that you'll encounter during the survey is the flowers. So the common has 4 petals and the glossy buckthorn has 5 petals. Both species prefer partial to full shade and establish in a wide range of habitats. So they're probably going to be overlapping each other. And just because we didn't find one last year doesn't mean we won't find it this year. So keep an eye out for both. And glossy buckthorn is usually more often found in wetter habitats. And they're both leafed out now, so you'll be able to see those leaves and pick them out. Bush honeysuckle is another shrub. It grows up to 16 feet tall. And one of the key features is it has the opposite arrangement of the leaves. So you can see how the leaves are opposite of each other. And the stems are like branching. So they're long and branching. They'll have these flowers. I've seen a lot of them kind of coming towards the ends of the flowering right now. But a lot of them still have the flowers on them and they smell quite nice. And then eventually they'll turn to this red berries here. So they hold their leaves late into the fall, but you'll be done with your surveys by then. So you can keep on, if you go out early, you'll probably see these flowers. Multiflora rose is another shrub, and it's a little bit different because it has these compound leaves here. So it has alternate compound leaves. So the leaves, this is a leaf with a bunch of leaflets, and then here's another leaf with a bunch of leaflets. And so they're not right across from each other, they're alternate from each other. So there's 5 to 11 leaflets per leaf. And one of the key features for distinguishing multiflora rose from other rose species is the leaf stipules are frayed. So if you look where the leaf is connecting to the branch, you'll see this frayed right here, this frayed stipule, and that is a key feature that I'm sure we will see multiflora rose when we're out during their field refresher. We'll be able to point this out to you, so you'll get it. It's very distinguishing. Another thing is it produces clusters of 5-petaled white flowers. So here you can see it's in these little bunches of 5-petaled white flowers, and then eventually it turns into red berries that are hard and football shaped. Tree of Heaven is our first real tree, which grows really big. It can get up to 100 feet tall. The bark is smooth and green when it's young, and then it turns a light brown to gray. It kind of looks like cantaloupe skin. Similar to the multiflora rose, it also has this compound leaf. So it has this long leaf. It can be 1 to 4 feet long. And it has these large leaf scars. So if you can see where a leaf branch has broken off, a leaf has broken off from the branch, you'll see this large leaf scar, which is a very distinguishing feature. And these are the seeds that only the female trees have. I'm not sure if you'll see those during your surveys, but that's what they look like. And the leaves are pretty similar to staghorn sumac, black walnut, and hickory. The difference is the tree of heaven leaves have these smooth margins. So like the edges of the leaves here are smooth. Also, if you are to like break a branch of the tree of heaven, it has a strong odor. People describe it as burnt peanut butter. Some people like the smell, some hate it, I don't know. But it definitely has a strong smell. And then moving into some of our more herbaceous species, knotweed, it seems like a shrub because it gets so massive. It's a shrub-like perennial. It resembles bamboo, so the stems, as you can see in this photo here, it kind of looks like bamboo, and the stems are hollow. It can get up to 10 feet tall. There's 3 different species, and it's a little hard to distinguish between them, but I did check on iMapInvasives, and if you're not able to, you could put in knotweed species not known. I know on the survey last year they did identify Japanese knotweed, so that may be what's mainly on the trail there. But if you're not sure, you can always send me a picture too, and we'll check. The stems are often purplish red, and the leaves can be variable, but they're leathery and broadly ovate. And then in August, it produces the showy white flowers. So if you're doing your survey in August, you might see that. You might also see it growing through the road. Hopefully not. Moving on to mugwort. So mugwort is a perennial herb, 2 to 5 feet tall. The leaves are alternate, and they're dark green and smooth on the top, and then on the bottom they're silvery and hairy. The leaves can be pretty variable. It's kind of hard to see in some of these pictures, but they can kind of come in different shapes. The stems are angular, and they have longitudinal ridges. So going up and down, you can kind of see ridges on the stem itself, kind of raised areas. And the stems may appear green to purple. They have small off-white flowers and a showy inflorescence in the late summer to early fall. So we may not see those during the surveys. This is what it looks like here, but sometimes you will see the old inflorescence from last year will kind of persist without the flowers. So you may see that along with a lot of the actual vegetative cover. Teasel is another herbaceous species. It is 2 to 6 feet tall. It has a single primary stem, and then sometimes there's branching near the top. It's a biennial or short-lived perennial, and there's 2 different species, the common and cutleaf, and the flowers can be white to purple. And I know that during last year's surveys, they did see some cutleaf teasel, and so you could see the leaves here. They're very, you can see why they call it cutleaf, because it looks like someone went in and cut the leaf. But it has this, I think it's a very common plant, and it is, especially like in the fall when it starts to die off, it has that brown, it persists in that brown kind of you can see it in fields and stuff. So it's pretty identifiable. Canada thistle is 2 to 5 feet tall. It also has a single stem that's slender, and the leaves are similar in size from the top to the bottom. The leaves appear crinkly, so these are much more crinkly than it was in the teasel. Occasionally they'll be lighter on the underside when compared to the green on the top, and the rosettes can be variable. But you can see it does look quite different, the flower from the teasel. And then we have bull thistle, which, kind of looks a little similar to Canada thistle. It's 2 to 6 feet tall. The leaves are deeply lobed, and it has long, sharp spines at the tips and along the midrib. It also has coarse hairs on the leaf tops, and it has more woolly bottom. So right here, you can also see the plant itself, it does look a little bit more woolly. You have the rosettes that form in the first year, and then it bolts in the second year when it forms the flowers. And so here you can see the flowers on the bull thistle, and it's a little bit more spiky compared to the Canada thistle, which really doesn't have spikes at the base of the flower. And the growth is triangular shaped. So compared to the Canada thistle, which I mentioned, the leaves are similar in size from top to bottom. The growth for the bull thistle is more triangular, so it's going to be larger on the bottom and shorter at the top. The flowers are also larger than Canada thistle. And here's just a group picture of them all joined together, so you can kind of have a comparison of the different species. And I definitely think when you get out in the field and look at them, it starts to, you really are able to start to pick them up. So again, here's the teasels and common teasel, cutleaf teasel, and then the Canada thistle, and then the bull thistle. And then finally our Phragmites, which is our grass species and our final focal species for this year. It grows to 6 to 13 feet tall. It's called common reed is one of its other names, and it really does. It looks like a very tall reed. You see these in wetland areas, along ponds. You see this along the roadside. It's a very common plant. The ligules, like the way that kind of identified Phragmites from other species is right here. So where the leaf meets the stem, you can see it has this hairy little bit here. That's the ligule. And so it's very obvious and hairy. So that is one way to be able to tell it that it's Phragmites. You'll also be able to see, you may be able to see the flower, this feathery plume that it has at the top. It's a little bit more, it can be purple and turn to brown later in the season. Okay, bonus species. So if you feel comfortable with the focal species and you have no problem, you're like, I feel comfortable identifying these species, and you want a little bit more to be looking for, we have a few species that you can also keep an eye out for. We have one grass species, which is reed canary grass, and then a couple of shrub species, burning bush and black jetweed. Reed canary grass, it's a perennial grass. It can grow 2 to 6 feet tall. The leaves are hairless and up to 10 inches long. Compared to the Phragmites, we talked about that hairy prominent ligule. Here in the reed canary grass, you're looking for, it's also prominent, but it's not hairy. It looks entire. So it's like this little, it almost looks like this little sheath here, growing where the leaf meets the stem. It'll also grow in these dense stands that can crowd out native vegetation, kind of like Phragmites, but it's a shorter plant. And then you can also look for this, different ligule here on the plant. And then burning bush, I think people are pretty familiar with this plant. It's planted a lot in gardens. It's a woody shrub that grows up to 15 feet tall. And the leaves are opposite. They are dark green in the spring and the summer, and then turn bright later in the fall, bright red in the fall. And, this is a prolific cedar dispersed by birds. It's especially when it's red, it's very easy to point out. I don't think any of this was identified on the surveys last year, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for and that we'd want to be mapping if we do see it. And then black jetweed is another shrub that grows 3 to 6 feet tall. The leaves are oppositely arranged as well, and it has arching, loosely branching stems, kind of like the honeysuckle in a way. The leaves have these deeply grooved veins, and then also the serrated leaf margins or the edges of the leaves, kind of like a serrated knife. It has white flowers with 4 petals, and it can, if we're out there in June, we might see this, who knows, but keep an eye out for it. It also has berries in clusters of 4, and they start off as yellow-green and turn jet black as they ripen. So that concludes our focal and bonus species, and then just to kind of move towards the end of the presentation, I just wanted to make this little note. So if anybody is newly updating or adding iMap, the app, to your phone, if you have an Android version 11 or up, you may not be able to download the app to your phone. So this is something that iMapInvasives is working on. They're trying to resolve the issue. So there's a number of options for moving forward with this. One is probably what I would recommend, which would be to just wait a couple weeks and, touch base with me, and I will check to see if it, if it's been updated or not. And then hopefully you can just, upload it on your phone at that point. That's the best case scenario. The other one is, you can use this newly enhanced IMAP survey 123, and they have made a tutorial, and that's on their website here in New York, iMapInvasives.org/report. So you can go there and watch the tutorial, and that will set you up. And then if you're having any issues with that or going through that, please reach out to me, and we can walk through it together and figure it out. And but hopefully everybody already has it on their phone and they are good to go. So I just wanted to thank everybody again for being here, for participating in the program, and thanks to everybody that's watching the recording and participating in the program. We can move into some questions if anybody has any. And then after that, if you haven't already signed up for a trail segment, I have the map here again with the numbers here on the map now. The starred ones are the ones that are a priority for this year. I think we have segments 1, 2, 5, and 6 already signed up for, but like I said, if you're really wanting to survey one of those, that's fine too. But yep, that concludes the presentation. Here's my contact info, and I will take any questions now.
If anyone wants to ask a question, they're welcome to unmute yourselves at this point. We can stop the recording too.
Okay. Let me do that just a second. Okay. Thanks, everyone.